3 types of drop-down list you can add to a spreadsheet. So save yourself a whole load of pain and watch this video and I'll talk you through when to use each of the different types. Right, I've set up this spreadsheet here. I've got 3 different drop-down list types on it. Type 1, data validation. Effectively, you can just scroll down and pick your name and it puts it straight into the cell that you've got. So great for data entry, very simple to set up too, but not nowhere near as many as configurable as some of the others. Second one, form controls, bit of a legacy control I feel, but brilliant for quite a lot of ways because it's still very easy to set up and it just gives this more professional appearance. If you're just using a selector drop down, for example, it's very obviously a drop down, whereas data validation maybe not so much. Now what this does is it outputs a number, which is the number from the list that you've just picked. Third type, ActiveX Controls. Highly configurable, very programmable, bit more time intensive in certain respects to set up, although this one actually I'll show you in a minute, very simple. You pick it, it outputs the actual value that you've chosen, which can prove very useful in certain circumstances. Right, so I'll just show you how you can go about setting up each of these and why you might want to use them. So here, right, what we're doing is data entry. So I've got this very small, as it happens, order table, and we want to put in customer segments and provinces, and we've got a particular list that we're allowed to pick from. It's the whole reason you might want to use a drop-down list. So this is very much a job for data validation lists. Okay, so I'll show you how you can set these up very quickly. So go to the data menu on the ribbon, data validation. Now on here you've got the settings. It says at the moment any value, in other words there's just no data validation. We're going to pick a list and then it says here source. So the source of the list for the customer segment is this. Right, now it's automatically put all the dollar signs around, so it's fixed that list. You click OK, and then you have your list working. Dead simple. Now, you can set it up all at once, for example, by doing that. Hit the same thing. List, source, there. OK. And you can also, for example, just copy and paste data validation if you do a paste special. And then you can click on validation and hit OK, and that will also copy just the validation criteria. So that's that set up there. Now you can also hit Alt and the down arrow and the Enter key, which can sometimes be a lot faster, which is also quite useful. It's not obvious when you look at a cell that it's got data validation on it. It's not until you actually click in it or you select it that you'll get the actual arrow. And if you start typing, so say customer segment, I call, if I type Excel, for example, you get this sort of value doesn't match. You can cancel that and then it will just wipe what you've typed, which is can be annoying because if somebody spells something wrong, I mean, it's going to guess on that one actually, but if I went up here and typed in home office, no, it's still guessing actually. Let's just get rid of those. So if I go up here, for example, and try and type home office and say I spell it wrong, it says, retry, okay, cancel, and it deletes it. Kind of frustrating. You need to know that there's a list on there. So you can actually remove these error messages by clicking on there. Okay, and that way then if I spell something incorrectly, it'll just let it go. So that's your 2 options really. I don't think that's particularly great if you're gonna use data validation, you're using it for a reason, you want to validate it. So If we did a warning, for example, instead, we could put a message in if we wanted to. So if I go in and do that, now just get a warning saying, do we want to continue? We can continue and accept that invalid data. Data validation, definitely the way to go if you want a list and you're doing data entry. What it's not so great for is if you wanted to run some kind of report off of the back of it. Say, for example, you wanted to set something up that would like produce a chart based off of the customer segment. The problem is it doesn't really look like a drop-down list. It's not until somebody clicks in it that they realize they've got a drop-down list selector. Whereas if you look back at here, say a form control, it's very obviously they've got to pick something. Same with an ActiveX control. Now I'll show you some of the things you can do with a form control. So what this is very good for is driving out reports. So this is how you add one. You go to the developer tab. Very quick way of adding a developer tab if you don't have it. It tends to be switched off by default. Up on the quick access toolbar, drop down, more commands, go to customize ribbon, and straight away you should see it here and you can tick that box and hit OK. So I'm going to insert this form control here, which is combo box. Now you can draw it freehand, but what I like to do is if you click on the Alt button and as you drag it around, it'll snap to the edges of the cells. Right, you right click on it and you do format control, and your input range, you can pick that. And your cell link, right, is where you want the output of the choice. So I'm just going to put it here for the moment and hit OK. So now when I click on this, I've got my list and it tells me the number that I've picked from the list. Sometimes that's great actually, because it's quite easy to deal with numbers in Excel. So if you want anything where you're going to be doing calculations based off of this, that can be really useful. But if you're trying to run, say, something that requires VLOOKUP, not so useful. One thing that is great, and I do like about these form controls, is they're so quick and simple to set up there. And they kind of look the business. On here, this is an ActiveX control, for example, but this one, I feel, it's just nice and simple. You can even assign a macro to it, only one mind, which will let you basically control like a macro from the item that's picked. So you'd be able to detect what's been picked by looking at that cell, for example, next to it, and run all kinds of things in your spreadsheet. So it's a great little halfway towards an ActiveX control. I think it looks the business. It's really simple to set up, and you've got the ability to use a macro. I use these a lot. I find them very, very useful. Now, how do you get around the fact that it outputs this number? What if you want it to the actual item that's been picked? Because there's nothing in that cell underneath. If I click on that and drag it around, you can see it's not outputting anything into its position. You can put this anywhere, and you can size it in any way too, which is kind of useful. Right, well, what you're going to need to do is put some kind of formula underneath, or anywhere really, which uses that number to find from the list. So I'm going to use the offset formula. Oops, don't want double equals at the beginning of it. We're saying that we want the top of the list. Just fix that with F4. How many rows down do we want? Or the number from the list. And it's as simple as that. Columns, we don't want to offset at all, so we put 0. And there we go. So now whatever we pick on here will be replicated in that cell. You can now use that in lookups and things like that. Quite simple. What you can't do with this control though, if you look at the format control, yes, you can put some kind of 3D shading on it, and text. You can't have it move in size with cells, right? But you can have it kind of moving and things. You can lock its aspect ratio, but there's not many, and you can change the number of drop-down rows, right? But generally speaking, there's not that much in the way of controls. I just click on 3D shading and you can see it sort of like drops into your spreadsheet a bit, can look kind of nice. Type number 3, the ActiveX control. Now this, if you're working with a lot of macros in your spreadsheets, definitely the way to go. Everything about it is configurable. So you can move it, size it, change what's in the list, all by code. But actually to set it up in the first place is not too bad. It's slightly more manual than the other two I've shown you, but it's not too bad. So if I put one on this screen here, so again you need the developer tab, insert ActiveX control here, and you can draw it again, same way I just drew the other one. Every time you click on it, it just highlights it as if you want to do something with it. And that's because we're in this design mode. You actually have to unclick design mode in order to use it. And at the moment, it's not linked to anything. So how do we link it? We need to be back in design mode. Right click on here. Now, if you click format control, what you'll see is, well, first thing, you can move and size with cells, but it doesn't appear to be anywhere to put the list in. Now the reason for that is that it's all in something called the properties box. So if we go onto properties, you can see, now this is what I mean by highly configurable. You have all of these things that can be changed. Not only can they be changed directly by typing in, but you can also change them with VBA code just by saying the actual code would be combo box 1 in this case, dot whatever property equals, and then whatever you want to change it to. But anyway, to keep things simple, list fill range is your range of cells. Now, unfortunately, you can't just do this, right? So list fill range, you have to manually type. So we can see it's B3 to B15. Now you can link it to across different sheets and things like that. But we'll just put that there for the moment. And link cell is effectively your output again, so we'll put that at D18. So D18. Okay, we'll close that. Out of design mode. And now we have our list, and it's kicking out the actual name. Now if you look at this, this is nasty. It's cutting off the bottom of the text. Part of the reason for that is that it's set with all this sort of 3D marking and stuff. So luckily it's all pretty configurable. So go back to the properties code. You can go to categorize actually, and then you can look at just appearance things. So special effects sunken, I'm going to go with flat. So now you can read it straight away. So that's good. Border style, we're going to put border on because otherwise when we click out of it, you wouldn't have seen it. So you can see now we've got this border on it. But you can have things like different colors of font. And actually, although using VBA, you can put any color font in this. So, oops, I want to do that, right? So I'm going to put it back to desktop. Back color as well, same thing. Can have any color of background. Some examples here, but again, you can just program anything, any color at all. If you know, say, the RGB code for it, it's fine. It'll accept anything. Very, very highly configurable. You can change things like the font, for example, which you can't do on a form control. So you can put any kind of font, any kind of size, bold, italic if you wanted in there, And the other thing I think that's kind of nice is that it outputs the actual value. That saves having to use any kind of formulas to convert from like the number in the list back. Bit of an advantage. Clearly no use for data entry though. I mean, talk about overkill. You wouldn't really want to do that. If I go back into design mode, for example, and right click, you can go view code. This defaulted to a change event procedure. So whatever code I write in there would run every time somebody changes what's in the Dropdown. So if I move that from saying Newfoundland to any other item, this macro would run. So if I just put as an example, change there, and then take it out of design mode, you can see when I pick there, we get that macro runs. That in itself is nothing you couldn't run with form control, But the beauty of this one is you have a ton of other event procedures. So if I just go again to view code, we have on Combo Box 1 all of these different types of events that we can put code onto. So you could have code run just by somebody clicking on it, somebody clicking on the drop down itself, somebody's typing like a key press whilst they're in it, for example, somebody moving onto it or off of it, actually even the mouse going over the top of it. Massively configurable control, this. Brilliant if you're designing, in fact, if you're designing your own user forms, it's pretty much what you want to be using for sure. And I'll just show you what you might, like how you might go about doing, say that's the click one, right? I'll show you one of these properties and how you might go about changing this. Properties, background color. So the back color here, yeah? So if we take that back color there, which is white at the moment, it's a code. So we're going to do combo box, combo box 1 dot. As soon as you put the dot, you get suggestions, but back color equals that when we click on it, right? Now, let's go back here and we'll say we want the back color to be black. This is rather silly, but no, let's try grey. There we go, right, grey. So now we have a back color of grey. I'm going to do this. And when you click on the button, we're going to make it go grey. Right, so now what we've got running is, take it off design mode, classes properties. So now when we click in it, of course we've got all manner of events firing. So it's white when something's selected, and the moment we click on it, it goes grey. The moment we change it, we get this change thing firing. All total waste of time, but just a demonstration of what we can do. Okay, so that's the 3 different types of drop-down lists that you can use in Excel: data validation, form controls, and ActiveX Controls. ActiveX Controls are going to be total overkill for most everyday needs, but absolutely brilliant for running, you know, heavily laden coded spreadsheets or stuff you really want to pin down. Absolutely brilliant at the very top end of it. Data validation lists, really simple, easy to set up, great for sort of data entry and things like that, but they don't really look like drop-down lists. So if you're trying to create some kind of dashboard or something, probably not where you want to go. And then this sort of compromise solution in the middle, form controls, I actually think brilliant, and sort of dashboards and running little sort of you know, charts and things like that you want us to be able to select sort of different types of chart. Great little compromise there. You can run sort of VLOOKUPs, sum ifs, sort of index matches, all manner of formulas off of the result of that to create different reports, and they're very simple to set up and very easy to configure. One bonus tip here, right? And that is for any drop-down box. At the moment, you can see that the list finishes at the bottom here with Alberta. And if I was to type in up for Excel on the bottom of that list, no, it's not going to pick it up. So if I want that to happen, all I have to do, I just delete that, is turn my list into a table first. So that's Control T. Says it's got a header row, hit OK. Now, you know, you're going to get some crazy formatting, but you can play about with that if you don't like it and just go back on it. So at the moment then, it's like that. If I now type in up for Excel on the bottom there, the table has now expanded. You can see this sort of little icon here. And because these controls were linked to a range that was in a table, it's automatically expanded the list size for me. And it does that for all of them, every single one of these. So great little bonus tip there at the end, whichever one you're using, run your lists as tables. Hope that was useful. Good luck building your spreadsheets with the drop-down lists. Make sure you check out the other videos on Up for Excel. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon as well to get notified of the next videos coming out, and I'll see you soon.